Yes, indeed. Good morning, everybody. And we got to include Lottie Dottie because Lottie Dottie is somebody too. It's your boy Retro with you on this morning, giving God the praise, the glory, and the honor in spite of, and at the same time, because of. Um, God is good all the time, and all the time He is good. Amen. Of course, today finds us a little bit heavy, um, but we'll get into that here in a moment. We want to welcome you to the show. Thank you for pressing play. As I said, it's your boy Retro with you on today with a little bit of retro philosophy. And so again, we just appreciate you and yours. I want to thank you, everyone who has been lifting me in your prayers, as well as my family. We lost a great individual on yesterday. My aunt Louise, affectionately known as Louise, officially Mabel Louise Fryer. Um, Man, I tell you, she's gone. She's gone. Definitely be missed. That was my auntie, y'all. She taught me a lot of things, showed me a lot of things, and she was just an all-around great person. And so we're definitely going to miss her. My whole day was messed up yesterday, man. It was, it wasn't expected, and it just messed up my whole flow. Still affected today. So keep us in your prayers as we once again go down this road of grieving, of missing a loved one. Her shoes will never be able to be filled. I tell you, my aunt Louise, she was a gem. She was a gem, and like I said, she will be missed, and the shoes that she fulfilled will be hard to fulfill. So just bear with me for a moment. Let's take a moment of silence for my auntie, my aunt Louise. Definitely gonna be Miss Louise. We love you, and we thank you for everything that you've done. Um, yeah, yeah. Words can't say it all. Words can't say it all. But she will definitely be remembered. It's your boy Retro with you on this morning, little retro philosophy, and I want to talk to you on this morning simply about what now. What now? What now? Where do we go from here? What's next? What's next? And I believe sometimes we find ourselves in a place in life, whether it's related to death, and it doesn't have to be that, it could simply be you going from one level in life to the next level. Okay. And what I mean by that is, let's just say you've prepared so long for what you've been doing, right? But now that that chapter has come to an end, now that that book is coming to a close as it relates to that portion of your life, where do you go from there and what do you do next? Okay. And sometimes we spend so much time, in some cases, in some situations, our whole life. We've prepared for this. We were grooming ourselves. We were getting ready. We were getting in position so that we can be ready, and so that we can do, and so that we can maximize, and so that we can enjoy, and so that we can have, but when that comes to an end, because look at this now, folks. Not everything that you engage in, not everything that we engage in, is going to last forever. Not everything that you do, not everything that you engage in is going to last forever. Some of you know the moment you started something, it was temporary. It was just for a moment. But we get caught up in the thing, so much so till we are not ready for when it case. Check this out. My children are grown. Y'all hear me almost every day talk about my children, right? My children. I love them dearly. I'm proud of them. I'm grateful that God allowed me to be in their lives, right? And several years ago, my wife would ask me fairly regularly, what are you going to do when the kids grow up? I said, I'm going to have a party because we're going to have our house back and, this, that, and the other, yada. And so she would ask me this, from time to time, right? What are you going to do when the kids grow up? What are you going to do when they go off to college? What are you going to do when they move out? And the truth be told, I wasn't ready. Okay, I wasn't ready. But guess what? We raised them little boogers to be responsible, to take chances, to give life their best go at it, right? And so now that we taught them all these things, now that we've installed all this stuff in them, now we should have known if we were teaching them those things that they were gonna do it, right? And so now that my son's moved out, my daughter's getting ready to move. Actually, she moved off to college. She came back. Now she's getting ready to move out on her own. And but come on, this is what we prepared them for, right? And so I wasn't really ready. Now, when my son moved out, that's my boy, and he's a man, and but my daughter, that's a different story. I still ain't really coming to grips with it. It's happening. It's in motion. It's in but I still, oh man, I'm like the proverbial ostrich sticking my head in the sand, and it's like, is it real? Yeah, it's real, bro. And so my wife, she's always said, what are you going to do when the kids move out? And so when it came to that, my son is gone. My son, he's moved out, got his own place. My daughter, she's off in school. And now here it is, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30. I'm literally laying in bed, listening for the door. Them jokers ain't turning that door knob. They was in their own apartments, their own house, their own, doing their own thing. And I was still in daddy mode as it relates to, checking that curfew time. Where they at? They're going to be coming home soon. That because I got into the habit of hearing that door at a certain hour and not even really being able to drift off to sleep until, everybody's in the house kind of a thing, and I think that's what we do in life. Good morning, sellers. I missed you last week, bro. I reached out to you and when we I don't know if there was miscommunication or whatever, but we've got to get back together so we can make it happen. But good morning and thank you for pressing play, brother. Keep me and my family in your prayers as we're dealing with yet another passing of a patriarch, and it's it's rough. It's rough. Matriarch, excuse me. And so anyway, we are preparing to head back up north yet again. As soon as we get the date and be taken off. And I may even be able to stop through your neck of the woods, seller. So make sure we connect, sir. But anyway, I wasn't ready, y'all. And so we cannot be so busy. Watch this now. Hopefully this might help a parent. We got any parents watching this morning? We cannot be so prepared to parent our children, our adolescents, our young adults until we fail at parenting or I don't even know if I can. Well, yeah, we can still parent, but what I'm saying is are adults. So in other words, if you still trying to treat your adolescent the way you did your toddler, you're gonna have a problem. Yeah, the way you parent a toddler is different than the way you parent an adolescent, and the way you parent an adolescent, y'all better hear me, it's different than how you parent your young adult child. And so we have to learn how to, can I throw a big word out there? We have to learn to matriculate through the stages and phases of parenting. Thank you, sir. Thank you. We certainly do appreciate the prayers. They are solicited and appreciated. And so my point, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, my point is that we cannot be so prepared for this phase that we know not what to do in the next phase. As a matter of fact, I think in life, and Lord knows I've tried to do this most of my life. It took me a while to understand and to get there, but I've tried my best to go through life, number one, with a plan. Number two, with an outlook. Number three, with a strategy. Okay. And what that means, what that entails is what I'm doing in this portion of my life, this phase of my life. If I have any insight as to where I'm going next, what I'm doing right now should make way for what I'm getting ready to do or where I'm preparing to go. So when I get there, I may not be able to take everything from where I was, but there should be some things from where I was that can assist me, help me, or enhance where I am right now. Okay. And so at some point in our life, we have to begin to ask the question. Let me put it on the screen here. We have to begin to ask the question, what next? Asking yourself the question, what next, does not always mean it's time to embark or begin the next chapter. It just means that you have to begin to consider what's going to happen next. Somebody type in the comment section, what next? Okay. And so when you begin to ask the question, what next, you can begin to prepare yourself. You can begin to make the proper shift. You can even begin to prepare the proper landing, if you will, for where you think you are going to head next. Because I don't want to be, it's almost like, we're coming, when you're coming out of the wintertime, usually you begin to get a few days to let you know, look, spring is on the way. The birds begin to chirp, the grass begins to start trying to, grow a little bit, turn a little greener. And not to mention the weather begins to change. Why? To prepare you, to get you ready for what's next. What's next? The spring. Okay. And so when you begin to think about what's next, the spring, that means you can begin to, if necessary, prepare your crops. Yeah. You prepare the ground, for the seed that will be planted at planting time. So you understand where I'm going with this. Okay. Otherwise, you're going to be caught unready. You're going to be caught unprepared. Okay. So we have to ask ourselves, at some point in our life, what's next? You broke, busted, and disgusted. Good morning, Sister Hicks. How you doing, sis? Now, hypothetically speaking, let's say one is broke, busted, and disgusted. Down and out. You ain't got no money. Won't nobody let you hold nothing until payday because you ain't got no payday come. Whatever the case is. Let's see what Mr. Sellers say. Sellers says, I have 3 kids. And all 3 of them are on I have 3 kids and all 3 of them are on their, I think, own, but I'm enjoying my grandkids. What? Come on, Brother Sellers. Oh my goodness. My grandbaby was over last night, man. And I mean, to tell you, boy, every time she sees her pappy, she will take my hat off my head and put it on her head and then look at me. Then put it back. And it just melts me every single time. So he says, I have 3 kids. I have 3 kids. All 3 of them are on their own, but enjoying my grandkids. We're in spoil them and send them home mode. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's exactly what we did. And so they were over last night, my son and my granddaughter. And she did something. And he went to go pop her little legs, and nothing serious, just, and she kind of, and then she come run over to her pappy, and hopped up in my lap. It started doing one of them. No, it wasn't crying, but she was milking it and playing. And I just, I'm just embracing her and just loving on her. And then she got back down out of my little lap and she ran over to her daddy, got in his lap. But Brother Sellers, you are absolutely right, man. That spoil them mold, them grandkids is something serious, man. Oh my goodness. If I'd have known that, if they'd have explained that to me, I'd have had a whole lot more children. You hear what I'm saying? So that my chances of grands would be greater and greater. But grateful for the 2 that I have, 2 children that I have. So where was I at, folks? I start talking about that grandbaby, and okay. So we've got to ask the question, what next? What next? Okay. Otherwise, we will find ourselves unready for the next phase of life. So one may be broke, busted, and disgusted, right? And when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired of being in the same situation that you in, if you don't ask what next, you just might stay there. When somebody begins to get up and make something happen, it's because they've asked themselves what's next. And if you don't like what, the reality to that answer is, it'll make you move and get out the way. Yeah, my granddaughter, she melts my heart every single time, Seller. She certainly does. Tony says, well, hold on, wait a minute. Whoo, my girl said, I got 12 grands and count you want some. Okay, and counting. Well, you know what? I might borrow some if I need to, because if you got a dozen, you can spare one or two for a weekend or something like that. So I might have to take you up on that. We'll just have to wait and see. Man, that's what's up though, Tony. 12 grand. That is beautiful, man. That is beautiful. And so, we ask ourselves the question, what's next? Okay. Now, depending on what you have done will determine how that answer goes and how it has to play out. Okay. Now, if you've been, I want to be nice and say, if you've been lagging behind, or if I be real, if you was loafing, wasn't doing what you should have, then that answer could be completely different than someone who has been in prep mode, who has been, getting things ready and everything like that. So for one who has been preparing, when you ask yourself the question, what's next? The answer might be, what's the word I'm looking for? Activation. Implementing. You might need to move to your implementing stage. You see what I'm saying? And that's great when you've got everything lined up. All you got to do is press the button. All you got to do is just implement it. All you got to do is just, activate it. Come on, man. I told you guys, see, there you go. Preparing for retirement. You see what I'm saying? And sellers, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, I think it was. Right now, you're in preparation mode for what's next. You see what I'm saying? So that when that chapter comes into full fruition, or when that chapter is literally started, the retirement chapter, all you got to do is just boom, press play. And you good to roll. You good to roll. You see what I'm saying? And so, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, saints and eights, that is the importance of asking ourselves what sometimes are hard questions. I share with you, we are once again at that phase of mourning the loss of a loved one who will be missed greatly. And there comes a time, even in our, no, I'm not telling nobody how to mourn. I ain't going there. I'm not going there, because everyone deals with it and has to process it differently. And to be honest with you, sometimes when a loved one leaves, sometimes someone else's loss is greater than someone else's. Let's just be real about it, and so you can't tell someone how to mourn. You can't put a time limit on somebody's process of mourning, because there are different stages of mourning. But my point is, with that said and done, we still, even in the process of mourning, have to ask ourselves, okay, what next? Do I stay here? I'm not saying that you've got to shorten or try to eliminate your mourning process. Take your time and mourn, but then what? Then what? Because at some point we got to pull it together. So let's see here. So we ask ourselves the question, what's next, so that we can be ready for it when it happens. Okay. And so if I have already, like Sellers, for instance, he said, his what's next, retirement, right? And so he's already getting ready now. And there should be a time. It's just like when someone is jogging, right? And it's interesting that I bring that example up, because I need y'all to pray for your boy, because I got to do something. Yeah, I'm asking myself what next. One answer to that question is I got to get in shape. I mean, I think I'm pretty, I ain't, all obese and nothing like that. I think I'm, but I'm out of shape. Okay. And I need to get in shape. I need to be physically fit. I think I'm a fit young man. But anyway, when running, when jogging, you may be running a race or whatever. Even after you've crossed the finish line, you don't just stop. You got to kind of taper it off, otherwise it can put more strain on your heart than necessary, more strain on your lungs than necessary. So you don't just come to an abrupt stop and just, but you kind of taper that thing off. And I believe in life, it's very similar. You see what I'm saying? I'm doing this, and at some point I've got to begin to taper off to get ready for the next move, the next stage, the next page, the next turn. Are you with me, folks? Okay. And so we've got to be proactive. And sometimes the only way to be proactive effectively or properly is to ask yourselves questions like that. What next? What next? Okay. Let's say you come to the understanding that the next thing you need to do is completely night and day from what you're doing right now. It's going to make it that much harder to switch, to shift. So that tapering stage, that tapering off phase is where you begin to slow it down so that you can make that turn. I was out riding the other day, and we took a nice little ride, me and the wife and a group of riders, and we were on some backcountry roads, man. When I tell you beautiful, absolutely beautiful, man. I mean, to tell you, just roads I've never been on, would have probably never been able to find, which leads me to the point. Some of us are lost because we are not getting out of our normal circles. We're not getting out of our normal surroundings, I should say. Because there are some roads you will never find unless you mingle with other people that know those roads. You might not get that; it'll sink in later. But what I'm saying is, you've got to broaden your view. You got to broaden you got to broaden your surroundings at some point. Okay, let's see here. And also, what God will have me do after retiring. Will I relocate, or will I stay in the same state and just downsize my home? You see, that's a very good question. And I think that your mind and your heart is in the right place, Brother Sellers, because, sometimes God sends us on, or he allows us to turn the page in life. And sometimes that involves a complete different mission. It involves a complete different, in some cases, even scenery. I'll go even further and say this. When we moved to the Carolinas, we were at a particular place in life where it was necessary. Okay. We needed that change. It was necessary. Not only was it necessary, but unless had we not done it, we would have not been able to fulfill what he had in store for us, because we wouldn't have been properly positioned. Let me tell you this, folks. There are some things that some of us desire to do, have been called to do, that we will never do because of our location. Sometimes you got to break away from some stuff and some people. He told Abraham, get thee from thy country and from thy kindred to a place that I will show you. Okay. And I'm not saying that's the case for everybody. But many a times, your blessings and your next set of instructions and your next bag of tools are in a place where he will show you. Could you imagine where we would be had Abraham not stepped out on faith and done what God told him to do? So yes, Brother Sellers, I do believe that sometimes it is necessary to relocate. Because you mentioned, should you downsize your home? Well, you've got them beautiful grands, but, like my wife is like, the kids is gone and this and that. And she already talking about, let's sell. And I'm like, well, baby, let's hold on. Let's, but sometimes we have more than what we need for where we're going. And so I don't know your particular situation and everything involved, but I do believe that you are asking some very good questions. And plus, furthermore, you're at a place now, your kids is grown, you've done your job. And so if you want to just pick up and go, you can, you can always come back and visit the grands and things like that. And so anyway, What next? That's everybody who's watching, whether now or the replay. That's your homework assignment. Okay, begin to ask yourself that very question: what next? Because check this out. What if you've been doing what you've been doing only because you're good at it and not because it was your assignment? Ooh, there goes a question for you right there. That, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, saints and ain'ts, is some retro philosophy for you on this morning. Yep. What if what you're doing, you're only doing it because you're good at it and not because it's your assignment? If you're only doing it because you're good at it and it is not your assignment, then your level of effectiveness may not be what it should be. I am good at doing it. I can do some here. I can do something, but I'm not on that. That's no longer my assignment. That's no longer the phase that I'm in right now. I could pick back up the curling iron. I can pick back up the clippers, and I never really put the clippers down. I still cut some hair and stuff like that, but not like I used to. You see what I'm saying? Because I've got another assignment, and so be careful about doing things only because you're good at it. Okay, be very, very careful. In the words of Roger Rabbit, be very, very careful. So Brother Sellers, we're definitely praying for you that as you continue to ask these questions and seek God about the next chapter, that He will give you not only the answers but the desires of your heart, and may you find extreme favor as you prepare for this next chapter. Okay, not only that, but I wish you good health and longevity. Let's see here. Sister Hicks is in the building. And 2017, I lost everything, and I had I lost everything I had from my house, job, car, and even my mind. I couldn't figure what was going on. I kept asking God, "What's next? What do I do?" He was silent. I had to step out and trust Him fully, and He answered me, not right away, but He answered me. And so sometimes the beauty is because check it out. Some answers that we get right away, we take for granted. Sometimes He's got to leave us in an area where we will ponder, where we will desire and because and we have to understand that He knows what's best. So, He won't always answer right away. It's almost like, and I use this analogy quite a bit. I don't know if anybody ever seen the movie with Will Smith, I, Robot. Well, anyway, real quickly, the story goes that, there was a cop that or a professor or whatever who died. He was murdered. And Will Smith gets to the scene and something's not right. He knows something's off. And he finds this little cube, hologram pops out. And all the answers that he needed were within that program or within that hologram. But in order to get the right answers, he had to ask the right questions. And sometimes God will not answer us until we start asking the right questions. Case in point. Oh, Lord, why me? Why me? Why I got to go through this? Oh, Lord, my heart is heavy. Lord, why me? Why me? Why me? And sometimes God will sit there like this. Yeah, sometimes God will sit there just like that, because that's not the right question. But the right question is, God, how do I make it through this? God, how do I find the strength to endure? And that's when He begins to answer and says, son, daughter, in your weakness, my strength is made perfect. That's when He begins to answer, son, daughter, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. That's when He will begin to answer, you, my son and my daughter, are more than a conqueror. So we've got to begin to ask the right question. So thank you for sharing that, Sister Tony. It's amazing how God will see us through the storm. It's amazing how God will ensure that we will bounce back. Not only will we bounce back, but on many of occasions, He will give us double for our trouble. I wish I had a witness in the building. We might as well have some church up in here. Where the church folk at? Where the church folk at? Come on, okay. All right. Let's see. Your gifts will make room for you. And sometimes in order to find our gifts, we got to go get them. Yeah, I do believe that your gift will make room for you. But if you get stuck on the fact that you're good at your gifting, then you're going to find yourself in a problem. God gave Abraham a gift, right? He gave him the promised seed, the promise. And he said, I'm going to make you the father of many nations, right? But then he turns around and he tells Abraham to take the very gift that was given him that he struggled to get. And he said, take it up on, I think it was Mount Moriah, if I'm not mistaken. But I know he said, take him up on the mountain and sacrifice him. And this is what some of us look like. We've been gifted by God with giftings and abilities and talents and so on and so forth. But we slip and we get intoxicated on our own, on the fact that we're good at it. And we begin to, the accolades and the props, and we begin to get intoxicated on that stuff. And then the very thing that he gave us to be a blessing with, we begin to make a God out of it. Yeah, we begin to worship the fact that, I'm doing such and such, and I got this and I got that, and blase, blase. And every now and then God will test you and say, take it up here and kill it. Take it up there and sacrifice it. Because it can't be but one God in this situation. Yeah, he said, I'm a jealous God, and I will not give my glory to another. That's what he said. And so when we begin to worship the fact that I can sing so good, if we begin to worship the fact that, when I stand up and sing, the church is slain in the spirit. If we begin to worship the fact that, I rode 1,000,000 miles, or I got the flyest bike, or, I got the, whatever your case is, whatever your situation is, God has a way of humbling us. He has a way, because he's doing us a favor in the process, because he said that we're not to worship anything or anybody but him. Start asking the right questions. That's right, baby. That's right. And so we've got to understand this, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, saints and saints. We've got to understand this, okay? And so God tells him, he said, take your son up on Mount Moriah and sacrifice him. And he gets up there, and he was obedient. He was willing. And God had already prepared a ram in the bush. And that's a whole nother conversation right there, talking about that ram in the bush. God has been dealing with that, and I've got a perspective that needs to be worked on that thing, and I'm just gonna hold on to it for now because, that's another question we need to ask. Why was the ram stuck in the bush? Yeah, okay. I'm gonna leave that there for now. I'm gonna preach that one of these days soon. Tony says, I ask God to keep me humble, mold me to what He wants me to be. I am nothing, and I know where I come from. I think you said a mouthful right there, knowing where we come from. It's not something that we should hide. It's not something that we should be embarrassed of. It's something that we should be proud of. I may not be proud of what was going on where I came from. I may not be proud of what I was doing where I came from, but I'm proud of where I came from. In other words, it's a part of who I am. I would not be me if it were not for where I came from and some of the struggles that I didn't want nobody to know that I was struggling through. Yeah. When you had to sit down there and eat them syrup sandwiches because wasn't nothing else in the house, I can remember a flashback, real talk flashback. Right now, I'm getting a flashback. 29 Central Street, Springfield, Massachusetts, apartment 29A. And I can remember going in the cupboards, nothing. They go that block of government cheese. And them slice that in slice of bread that nobody wanted until it was nothing left. Then next thing you know, you fighting over that. Yeah. And you cut that. Y'all, how many of y'all remember that government cheese? I mean, you had to have a good knife. You can pull out one of them Dollar Tree butter knives talking about you cutting that government cheese. Because I'm telling you, I broke some handles off in that cheese trying to cut it. Yes, sir. Lord knows that cheese was real talk though. But what's my point? My point is we went through some struggles, and some of the struggles that we had to struggle through, we wasn't going to school the next day telling folk that, oh yeah, we didn't have nothing. My mama used to say, if I was hungry, I wouldn't tell you. Sometimes you just got to go through in silence, because when God gets you through to the other side, come on, somebody, it's going to have its own stories, its own testimony, And so there's a time. Yes, it's only so. Oh yeah, the best. Couldn't get no better grilled cheese sandwich than with that government cheese. Not government cheese, government cheese. Yeah, government cheese. It's a difference. Yeah, yeah. That cardboard box it came in, and then you try to wrap that little plastic back around it, and whoever went in there the last time and didn't wrap it back around it, then that part of it got kind of hard, and y'all don't know nothing about that. Y'all don't know nothing about that struggle right there. But it's where I came from. And Sister Tony, you are absolutely right. It does. It helps keep one humble. Because if you ever slip and think because you got such and such, because you've done such and such, because you've been so and so, because this, that, and the other, that you are now somebody, all right, take heed lest you fall. Okay. And so that's that. Yeah. And every time I go back home, and I'll be coming back up there soon, y'all, because as soon as I get these, the dates, I'll be up there to lay my auntie to rest along with the rest of the family. But every time I come back to the field, man, I usually always end up in the South End, riding through. I don't go through the orchard as much. I kind of, because the South End was where I really grew up at, as a young lad, and then, spent a lot of time up on the hill. And then later on, and I think we moved to Indian Orchard in 1991. I think it was 90, 91. We moved to the orchard. And but by then I was already molded into the person that I was. And so the orchard was a phase, but it wasn't really the neighborhood that molded me, if that makes sense, So I don't know if I can really call the orchard my hood, but I can certainly say that about the South End, because that's where a whole lot of stuff went down right there in the South End. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, now you know what you're talking about. Welfare. Oh, come on, can we talk about the food stamp booklets? And because you were supposed to have the whole booklet when you went to the store. Yeah, y'all went to the store. We went to the store, and because of the store, you can get it on credit, and because they. But anyway, yeah, you were supposed to bring the whole booklet. But man, the little storekeeper didn't care. Give me them food stamps. Some of y'all was up in them little bodegas buying cigarettes and everything else with them food stamps. No doggone well, it was supposed to be only for food. Oh, okay, let me stop. We're supposed to be talking about what's next, right? Well, sometimes you can't properly move into your next phase until you properly acknowledge where you come from. Because you know what? If you don't, you might end up repeating the same thing. Okay, let's see. Thank you, Sister Tony. It was Sister Louise Vet's mom who passed, G's mother-in-law. So yeah, she's definitely going to be missed. She's definitely going to be missed. Yeah. It's not no sellers, not store. Yeah. Going down to the store and you remember they gave you that little list of stuff to get and you mess around and lost the list halfway to the store and turn around, can't find it. And now you in the store trying to remember what mama told you to go get it. And Lord knows you don't want to get the wrong thing. And oh Lord Jesus, them were the days, y'all. Them were the days. So it's good. The fish market, you going back, Sister Hicks. Yes, sir. But it's good to remember. Now I want to say this. There's a difference between remembering and reminiscing. Okay. And I think you got to be careful with both, but more so with reminiscing. Okay. Because when you reminisce, I've got old girlfriends that I remember. I've had a whole lot, but I don't remember all of them. But there's a few that I remember, but I don't reminisce. Come on, somebody. You can't forget past experiences, but you got to be careful how you reminisce, because when you reminisce, you're reattaching a feeling to it. You're replaying an experience. You got to be careful with that. I'm just going to say that. So you can remember some things, but when you start reminiscing, you got to be careful, because switch gears a little bit. I can remember some things that I did in life, but if I begin to reminisce about some things that I did in life. You know, it's like I'm going back down memory lane, and I remember what I had on at that moment and what song was playing and what was going, and now all these things, and it can awaken some feelings and emotions that will be hard to put back to sleep. And I'm not even talking about, I'm talking about ways. Back in the day, some of us would fight at the drop of a dime, and some of those ways need to stay asleep. They need to stay dead. Okay. So we can remember where we come from, but careful on the reminiscing part, because you might find yourself, putting back on your Timberlands and your hoodie and, finding yourself back out on the block, or, I don't know where you come from and what God delivered you from. But I don't want you to go back to whatever it was that he delivered you from. So what next? Sometimes, come on, somebody, we've got to be willing to ask those hard questions. Okay. Let's see here. So where do we go from here? I've asked the question, what next? And as hard or as difficult as it might have been to to come to grips with the question, I did it. Let's see. Don't forget about the government. Oh, the government baloney. Yeah, that fried baloney. Yeah, that wasn't no joke right there. Now, if my memory serves me correctly, sellers, didn't it have that red strip around it? And you would put that thing in the skillet and turn it on and get it heated, and it start popping and get brown in the center. And you take the fork and press it down because of that rose in the middle and all that. Yeah, yeah. And then you take the fork and yeah, I think it had that red strip around it. Yeah. Oh boy, y'all got me remembering some stuff, boy. Now see, I'm not reminiscing, I'm just remembering. But yes, sir, it had the red strip around it. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you go. So now we've asked the question, what next? So we kind of got a glimpse of what's next, right? And don't become paralyzed because of the hardness of the question or the reality of what needs to be done. Because when the question is asked and considered and pondered, sometimes you find out that all this time you were the only one holding yourself back, holding yourself down. Yeah, I know a lot of folks say the white man, the popo, the this, the that, and they may not be innocent, but ultimately you can't blame everything on everybody, or in some cases, everybody. We talked the other day about regret and responsibility. Yeah, when we ask ourselves these kinds of questions, what we're doing is we're taking responsibility. Okay, so what next? Okay, now you've discovered what needs to be done next. You got to get a job. You got to do this. You got to stop this, whatever it is. And then the question now is, where do we go from here? And again, it goes back to what I said a while ago. It all depends on what you have previously done. I need for us to understand how important now is. Your then a whole lot easier if you maximize the moment. Okay, if you do it, if you utilize your now with some foresight, you'll thank yourself later. You'll thank yourself later. Okay, so where do we go from here? That's a good question. I think what we have to be careful of. Hey, brother James, how you doing, sir? God bless you, man. God bless you. What we have to be, and thank you for pressing play and being with us on today. Greatly appreciate it. Greatly appreciate it. Let's see. Silla says, I'm not trying to sound all religious, but I've come to understand that in this life, only what you come on now. See, it's not about being religious. It's about facts. It's about the truth, right? And so speak it and speak it loud. Only what we do for Christ will last. Can I get an amen, church? Can I get an amen? And can I just say this? Be very, very careful. Let me say it a different way. Let us be careful not to allow people to try to browbeat us and make us not so much embarrassed, because we're not embarrassed, but because it's not about being religious. It's just about the truth, you know. And sometimes people will, if we're not careful, people will have us reeling it in when we should be casting it out, you know. Look here, you know. And just because, you know, I'm around a bunch of sinners, and if Christ was here right now, he wouldn't be at church. You look in the Bible and you tell me, when did you see Jesus upset? At church. He went in there, them jokers. He said, my father's house should be a house of prayer, and you've turned it into a den of thieves. He made a cord and whipped they behind, turned the tables over and everything. You show me somewhere else in scripture where Jesus was mad. It was when he was dealing with church folk, because they wasn't doing what they were supposed to be doing the way they were supposed to be doing it. They took the church, the very thing that was supposed to be sacred, the place of prayer, this, that, and the other, and they twisted it. They perverted it into something else. And that's what happens so much. People of God, people who have been anointed by God, people who have been gifted by God, they take the very gift and they pervert it for their own vain glory. So anyway, if Jesus was here today, he would be amongst the sinners. Yeah, they label us as judges and all that stuff, you know. But if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, acts like a duck, sounds like a duck, then by golly, it's a duck. I ain't judging. I'm just telling you what it is, you know. And so they will use all those kind of phrases just to try to silence us. But I believe it was, who was it? Well, we had the 3 Hebrew boys. Number one, they said, look, we're not even careful how we answer you in this matter. You know, and then we had, I believe it was the apostles, and they said, we'd rather obey God than man. It's not about hurting your feelings. Excuse me. It's not about hurting your feelings, but I've got to tell the truth. Now, in telling the truth, let us take the advice of the apostle Paul. Number one, he said, all things that are lawful are not expedient. So in other words, sometimes we got to know, in the words of Kenny Rogers, we got to know when to hold them and we got to know when to fold them. So I could have the truth, but right now might not be the best time. In other words, we got to walk in wisdom. Okay. I don't take truth. I don't take the word of God and use it as a hammer to beat you and to bruise you and to harm you. But I've got to use it as wisdom. I've got to use it as a tool. And so sometimes you got to get people at a different setting. Sometimes you've got to build rapport before you just, you know, case in point, Jesus, he sat the folks down and fed them. Then he blessed them with the word. Let's see. There you go. There you go. Right there. James, that's it right there. You tell it in love. You tell it in love. And not only do we tell it in love, we got to tell it in a way where they can comprehend it. You know, you got to know your audience. You got to know your audience. Yeah, you got a bunch of teeny boppers out there. You know, you're gonna have to tell it a little differently than you would with with and grandma and all. So anyway, so where do we go from here? Again, that's gonna vary from person to person. Let me say this: sometimes we don't know what to do, but we should always know what not to do. Yeah, some might not get it, but please understand. I may not know what to do, but I know I ain't doing that. I know I ain't turning my back on God. I don't know where I'm going from here, but I know what I'm not doing. Sometimes, where do we go from here? Sometimes the answer to that question is nowhere. Sometimes the answer to that question is stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. So sometimes we think it's time to move, but not yet. Not yet. Sometimes you are sometimes you're in the right place. The Lord gave me a word yesterday, and I released it to the life of a young lady. And what it was simply this. I said, God is getting ready to, I think the word I used was elevate you in familiar places. And in other words, he's taking you to another realm in familiar places. So in other words, God can do a new thing right where you are. So your next level could be right where you are, just on a different realm. You understand what I'm saying? I believe, Sellers, you said earlier, your gift will make room for you, and for some of us, we've been in a particular area, particular place for a whole season. And you got to be careful that you're looking that your next season is going to be over yonder. Sometimes that next season can be right there in that same field, just on a whole another level of glory, if that makes sense. Okay. And so sometimes, where do we go from here? Nowhere. We stay right here, but we deal with it from a different perspective. There were some things in life where God had to show me. He didn't move me. He just showed me some things. And then after being enlightened, I was able to maximize on some of the same things that were right around me all that time, that I didn't see it for what it was. Okay. I got to get out of here, y'all. But this is just a little retro philosophy for you on this morning. Please remember, when you do it, we got to do it in love. Okay. We've got to do it in love, not in compromise, because sometimes we think reaching them means we got to compromise. We think, and I shouldn't even use the word compromise, because sometimes compromise is necessary, because you way up here, they down here. And sometimes you got to compromise. Sometimes you need to come down a little bit. Sometimes you need to stop interpreting the Greek and the Hebrew and just live it in English so that they can see it, understand it. You understand what I'm saying? But what we do is, I think the word that I should use in this example here is it's not so much that we shouldn't compromise, but we should not conform. Boom, there it is right there. Don't conform to this world. Don't do it. You will see me in places that you won't see the average church person. That's probably a given. I've never been an in the box kind of guy. I've always been an out of the box kind of guy, kind of fella. And so, but you will not see me conform. And some folks got to be careful that you think you're conforming is being effective. It's being effective, but not to your benefit. Yeah. Who was it? Paul asked the church in Galatia a question. He said, who has bewitched you that you should not obey the truth? Who has hoodwinked you? Who has tricked you? And so I'm going to stop, but don't conform. Okay. You can communicate with them jokers. You can even fellowship with them jokers. I've done it, and I will do it, but I will not conform. My light has got to always shine. I don't ever want the one that I'm supposed to be ministering to look at me and say, we the same. It's not like I'm better. It's not about that. But I'm the one that's supposed to have a light that's shining in darkness. And I don't ever want the one that I'm supposed to be ministering to look at me and say, we the same. I would love for them to be able to look at me and say, I can understand this brother. I can relate. But to say we the same, if that's what they're saying, then you're doing it wrong. They're supposed to always look at you and say, something's different about this guy. They're supposed to always look at you, not only and say something's different about you, but know and understand that it's no goodness of your own. They should see you and know that something greater and bigger and more powerful is working through you. Sometimes they might not even like you, but they acknowledge the greater power that's working through you. Let's see. As with Christ, with loving kindness has I drawn thee. We tell the truth in love. If you're not telling it in love, then it's not the truth. You're going straight to hell. If you ain't telling them in love, it's not the truth, because the truth is he died so that you would not have to go straight to hell. And so be careful how you tell somebody they're going straight to hell, because you might get there first. Did I just say that? I sure enough did. hmm Be careful, because every sinner has a future and every saint has a past. And if you mess around and forget where you came from, you might end up right back where you was. Okay. So when you tell it in love. Okay. Sellers, you're absolutely right. We need to be Christ centered and spirit led. Say that again, brother. Yeah. See, it's easy to follow someone who is Christ centered and spirit led. Even when I don't really understand why you're doing what you're doing, but because I know that God is working in you, because I know that you are Christ centered and spirit led, I can trust you. And I know that it's going to be all right. All right. So let's see here. I got to get out of here, y'all. I really do. I appreciate you guys stopping by and talking with me for a few moments here. What next and where do we go from here? Those are questions that you've got to ask and you've got to answer. I can't tell you where to go from here because I'm not in your shoes. You're the one having the conversations with God. All right. So you got to get to a place where, you can get those answers for yourself. Don't copy minds. Because for me, mine might be right, but for you, they may be wrong. Yeah. You ever thought about that? The worst thing in the world is to copy off of somebody's test. and y'all both fail. Both fail. All right. So I'm out of here, y'all. I want to thank you for pressing play and hang out with me on this morning. Please continue to keep my family in your prayers. Not only did we lose my aunt on yesterday, but I also got the news that a good friend of mine, Tyrone Shaver, has finished his race as well. So please also keep the Shaver family in prayer. Really sad, man. He was a good dude, and we used to hang out back in the day, especially after Sunday school, and so the Shavers, they've always been kind people, and so we're praying for his family, both his mom and his brothers, and his brother and his sister, and his wife and children. So again, keep me and my family in your prayers. The Fryer family, we lost Louise Fryer. Keep my cousin, her daughter, Ved and Candy and Junior. Keep them in your prayers, and all those who are touched, her grandchildren. And she was just a blessing, y'all. She was such a blessing. Shanita, how you doing? Thank you for pressing play. Well, God bless you for listening, and that's all we want to do. We just want to be a blessing. Okay. And so now I've got to go to work. So pray my strength in the Lord. And if anybody got any of that government cheese, put a grilled cheese sandwich together for your boy and text it over to me. Yeah. If you're just joining, then you got to hit the replay button. You got to watch it from the beginning. Okay. So you can get the whole gist of the whole government cheese and all that stuff. All right. We out of here. God bless you and heaven smile on you. We'll see you guys next go round. If you want to be a blessing to this channel, then we certainly appreciate that. And I'm going to show you how you can do so. I want to say good morning to Kingdom Knights, both here in Charlotte as well as Ohio, and definitely up in Maryland, which is our mother chapter. So we want to say good morning to them. They will be having their biker blessing on tomorrow, Saturday. And it's going to be awesome, man. It's going to be awesome. So if you're in the Maryland area and you want to stop by, definitely go over to my page. I think I have it on there. If not, I'm going to definitely put it on there. But you can also go over to Lydell Higgins, Moose Wilson. They've got all the information there, or any Kingdom Knight that you see here on Facebook, and you can get the flyer with all the info. But like I said, I'll put it on my page as well. But if you want to be a blessing to the channel, you can do so by going to Cash App $Retro Philosophy. We are actually gearing up for a cross-country trip. We're taking the show on the road, so we'll be stopping in several different states along the way, going live doing our show and having some footage, some highway footage as we travel. My wife and I will be traveling to do this trip, so we encourage you to be a blessing. And let's see here. And then also remember, on Monday nights at 8:00, we have our live interviews. If you want to be a part of the show in terms of the interview process, give me a holler. We'd love to have you on the show to talk about anything biker related. And if it's really great and it's not biker related, then we can make an exception. So that's it for me today. I'm going to get out of here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for pressing play, and keep me in your prayers as we do the same for you. That's my auntie, y'all.